Good Saturday morning, everyone. I am Nick live from Randy, Chattanooga, Tennessee. This is episode 215 of Two Countries, Two Americas All Sports, the only American and Brazilian sports podcast. Joining me from Rio Branco HQ in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, is Gus Tomazelli. Gus, how are things here as you guys are ramping up for another season in the state of Sao Paulo?
Yeah. In 2 weeks, I'll be in Rio Preto, São José do Rio Preto, actually, for Rio Branco's debut in the third division of the state of Sao Paulo championship. Of course, as we're going to talk about it later, the first division and the second division of the state of Sao Paulo soccer championship is going to start this weekend. And it's a very hot day here in Americana, Sao Paulo, Brazil, as I am live from Décio Vita Stadium.
Absolutely. Summer down there in Brazil. Going to turn colder here, but this is not the Weather Channel. We have a lot of sports to talk about and not infinite time. So let's get right into it, Gus. Let's start with the college football playoffs. We've seen two semifinal games over the last 2 days. Let's start with what we just saw last night. Indiana and Oregon. This was a rematch of a game in the regular season where Indiana went to Austin Stadium and won 30-20. This game was not as close. Indiana came out and just absolutely smashed the Ducks, turned them into duck meat. It's like the old NES game, the Duck Hunt. Indiana defeats Oregon 56-22, and this thing was over by halftime. It was 35-7. Complete domination for Fernando Mendoza and that offense that ran over Oregon. And then on the other side, Dante Moore just had an awful night, had 3 turnovers, which really just put the game out of control very quickly, Gus. I mean, just what do you think is, like, when you take a look at this Indiana story, like, there are no 5 stars on this roster. Oregon had at least 7 or 8 on their roster. But it just doesn't look like it matters. Like, this Indiana team just plays the game of football at such an incredibly high level.
I think this Indiana Hoosiers story in college football this season just showed that all the previous metrics for college football are out the window. Because when a team goes 15-0 and defeats twice a really good team, a really, really great team as the Oregon Ducks, also the reigning national champions, Ohio State, in a conference championship, with no 5-star recruits, it just shows that this metrics is off the window. Now it's about, I think it's more about what you can transfer, what you can find within college football than what you can recruit out of high school. Because if I'm not mistaken, this team kind of had like a bond that Kurt Signetti built in JMU before going to Indiana.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these players were James Madison level players in the Sun Belt, and look at them now. I mean, they look like one of the most formidable teams we have seen in quite some time. I think, it says a couple things. One, the old adage of stars aren't everything is completely true, right? Like, if you have the right coaching staff, you're able to have the right chemistry, you can get teams like Indiana, that first and foremost. But two, I think what you said about the fact of the old metrics of just looking at talent rankings, looking at the brands, that's done. And I think the case of being able to turn around programs super fast and the sport becoming incredibly unpredictable is completely true. Like, I don't remember who I predicted in the national championship preseason. I think it was like Ohio State and Georgia. I would never have guessed Indiana or Miami, who we're going to talk about here in a few minutes, being in that national title game. The sport of college football as we knew it is dead. And in some respects, that's an amazing thing. Like, having teams like Indiana go well in the national title shows that any team can actually do this. Like, Indiana was the losingest program in college football history heading into this year. Like, if you're a fan of a team like Maryland or Purdue or, like Iowa State or something, like a fan of this team that's never had that type of success, right? You can look at Indiana and think, one day that could be us. With the right coach, with the right backing, You just never know now with the way college football is set up. And now there's a lot of downsides to the current state of college football that we'll get into, but the positive of it is there are new players, and Indiana is now one of those new players, thanks in part to what we've seen from Kirk Cignetti. And this Kirk Cignetti, he has done a rebuild job that would be hard to do on a video game. Like, I don't know if I could go onto a video game right now, take over like a Boston College and make them into a national championship contender in 2 years on like a hard dynasty mode. You know, like that, what he's doing in real life is unbelievable. And it is truly, I think, one of the greatest coaching jobs, not the greatest coaching job we've ever seen, because you're right, most of these guys are from James Madison. He didn't go out and just buy a bunch of great players. Now, they did go out and get Fernando Mendoza, who has been amazing. But this time last year, Fernando Mendoza was not a household name. Like, maybe hardcore football fans knew about him because he had a pretty good season at Cal. But I don't think anyone expected Fernando Mendoza to go to Indiana and do this. And Mendoza, I think, deserves to be the number one pick, absolutely. And I think he is going to save the Las Vegas Raiders. Write this down, Gus. I'm not saying the Raiders are going to be good next year necessarily. I think he's going to save the Raiders. Him with Ashton Genty and Brock Bowers and whatever receiving core they can figure out there, like, that's going to be a formidable offense in the next couple of years. Like, AFC will watch out.
And probably that's why they fired Pete Carroll, because they want to find a coach that will be more suitable probably to Fernando Mendoza's style.
Yeah, absolutely. And, like, I think what impressed me last night is just the accuracy. Like, some of those back shoulder throws, especially to Elijah Sherratt, who I think will be a very good wide receiver in the NFL as well. He's just so accurate, and he looks so comfortable back there. And you can tell he's just a very confident leader. Like, he's so comfortable being that guy, and he's a bit goofy, right? But like he's comfortable being that guy. You tell he's really comfortable in his skin, and that's what you want from your quarterback. Because like being quarterback in the NFL is one of the hardest jobs out there. Like, you take so much criticism, so much pressure. That Fernando Mendoza, I think, has that mentality to be a great quarterback in the NFL, and I'm truly convinced now he is going to be a great quarterback. But it's not just him, right? Like, this whole team, these running backs they have, they're not the most athletic, they're not the fastest, but they all run so hard. They run so violently. The offensive line that Indiana has is so proficient. That defense that Indiana has, they hit hard. They establish the tone. I mean, Oregon looked shook last night. Like, I think Indiana, because they had already played Indiana once, I don't think they were ready for how much better Indiana played the second time. You know, and they just kind of wilted. And I think, the conversation on the other end is, can Dan Lanning get it done with Oregon? Because you would think that Oregon probably had just as much, if not more, talent on that field last night than Indiana. And of course, Oregon has the direct back of Phil Knight. And in this NIL era, in theory, Oregon should always have probably one of the top 5 rosters in the country. But Dan Lanning now, if you look back to 2 years ago, him versus Kalen DeBoer at Washington, he gets beat by DeBoer twice in the same year. Once in that classic regular season game between Oregon and Washington in Seattle, and then he loses to them again in the Pac-12 championship game in Las Vegas. This year, he gets beat twice by Kirk Cignetti. So the old adage of, you can't beat a good team twice. Well, apparently you can beat a good team twice if that team is coached by Dan Lanning. And you have to just wonder, I think Dan Lanning now is going to be one of those coaches that has infinite pressure on him because of this result. And I think
do you think he can kind of maybe become like a James Franklin path?
Well, there's 2 paths, right? You either live long enough to become James Franklin, or you do what like Mario Cristobal has done, right? Because Mario Cristobal, I think, has proven himself to a lot of his haters, including us. This postseason run of, because I didn't think Mario Cristobal was capable of leading Miami to the national championship game. I'll be completely honest. I thought I know he was an amazing recruiter, but I just don't think he's that good of an in-game coach. But I will say I think he has improved significantly as an in-game coach, and with the talent he's able to get as a coach, that helps a lot. And I think for Dan Lanning, right? Dan Lanning Like, because Landon is a great talent is it great at acquiring talent, but he's got to get better at the in-game coaching. And really, this really didn't come into play last night, but the big problem I've always had with Landon is he's just way too aggressive. Like, I think he goes for fourth down way too much, and he has to get better at that particular thing.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like he's probably have a really interesting style. Oh, shout out to my marketing director here, Rio Branco, Guilherme Santos, great guy, great marketing professional. Worked with me at Rio Branco here in Rio Branco Stadium. But back to what we're saying about Lenny. I feel like he tried to win the battle in the line of scrimmage and also the battle within the trenches. And just Indiana kind of outplayed them. He didn't got out coached, but he got out physical. Like Indiana team is just more physical and stronger. It's just that.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just, and that shouldn't happen in theory. But gotta give credit to Kirk Cignetti. He knew exactly what he needed. And that's why Indiana is going to the national title game. And I think if Indiana can go into Miami and win this national title and finish 16-0, they will be in that conversation for one of the best teams ever. Especially with what they have done in these playoffs, destroying Alabama, destroying Oregon. If they especially go out and destroy Miami in Miami, I think they would have to be in that conversation to be one of the best teams ever because – I mean, what they have done is impressive. Like, frankly, they're the most impressive team to me since at least 2022 Georgia, if not 2020 Alabama or even 2019 LSU. I think they're getting into that tier.
Yeah, I think that too. I think they're gonna be a historical, one of those like top 10, even top 5 great football team. I saw Instagram video. And it's a good discussion for the offseason. What is the best college football team of all time? And Indiana 2025-2026 has to be in the conversation. And there's others, like on the top of my head, LSU 2019-2020. But I think what gives
2001 Miami, 95 Nebraska, those are also the top ones.
Yeah, that's a great topic for the offseason pod. But
and what's kind of interesting, thinking about that particular topic, is the team they have to play can kind of defend their legacy, right? Because one of those teams I think is one of the greatest of all time is 2001 Miami. And this Miami Hurricanes team can kind of protect that legacy because they're going to host the Hoosiers at home in the national championship game, which, Gus, I think Miami fans will actually show up to a home game for once. Don't you think?
Yeah, I have a chance, but before that, another shout out to my beautiful girlfriend, Thais Viana Payão. Say, hey, have a nice podcast, guys. We appreciate that. But yeah, interesting that Miami get to, and Miami probably is going to be the first team to actually play in their home stadium in a college football national championship, because the others I saw a list, they play in their home state, but for example, LSU play, I think, 3 times in the Superdome. But Superdome is not the home of the LSU Tigers. Baton Rouge is. Tiger Stadium is. Florida also played, Florida Gators, I think, also played in Miami. But Miami Hurricanes had a chance to play in literally the stadium they played throughout their whole season, their home stadium.
Right. And Miami, if you think back to the history of Miami football, the first national title they ever won was in the Orange Bowl, literally in their home stadium versus Nebraska. To me, this upcoming game has some of those vibes. Before we get into Miami, Indiana, let's talk about that Miami Ole Miss game because that thing was a classic the other night. Great back and forth battle. And to me, what ultimately won this game for Miami was the line of scrimmage. I just think Miami's offensive line controlled this football game. And despite the heroic efforts of Trinidad Chambliss, you got to give credit to Carson Beck. Like, he did make mistakes out there, and he was able to engineer that game-winning drive That running back Miami has Fletcher, number 4, an amazing running back. And just they're clutch plays. And they played it smart. They were able to drain the clock. It was great coaching by Mario Cristobal. And it just, I mean, it was a great game. Someone was going to leave that Fiesta Bowl heartbroken. And it was Ole Miss. So congratulations to the Canes. And I think, to me, this proves Mario Cristobal can get it done on the big stage. And he's beaten Ohio State and Ole Miss and Texas A&M back to back to back. I mean, yeah, for a team that a lot of people were wondering if they even deserved to be here, they certainly have proven they did.
Yeah, and kind of like what Miami is doing, what Ohio State did last season, because Ohio State also had to play the first round, the quarterfinals, and the semifinals. So what Miami is doing, that's why this Miami team mirrors, I feel like, Ohio State too. And in terms of the past, in terms of, the a coach that was doubted, but everybody knew that he could coach and could recruit. I think it's going to be an ultimate classic.
I really do. And before we get into Indiana, I do want to talk about Ole Miss real quick, because obviously a heartbreaking loss for them. I can't even imagine how despondent Rebels fans must be over that result, because Ole Miss had never really been in that spot. And given obviously what's happened over the past month with Lane Kiffin, and now the news came out yesterday that Trinidad Chambliss was denied another year of eligibility. So Ole Miss is trying to figure out who their quarterback is now, because Austin Simmons, their backup, already left. He transferred out to, I believe, Missouri. I saw they were hosting Dylan Raiola in the portal, but Dylan Raiola is not Trinidad Chambliss. Ole Miss, it's going to be a long time, I think, before they're back in this spot. I think they're going to fall off without Kiffin, without Trinidad. And I think if you're Ole Miss, you're going to be thinking this was our chance and we blew it.
Yeah, that's what probably you could see on the faces of the players and the coaching staff, how devastated they were. It's not like Oregon was, not devastated, but I feel like Ole Miss also fans knew it. That was their run, because for rebuilding a program that had their coach left and their quarterback deny another year, it's not going to be a quick fix.
Yeah, and I'll say this. If Mendoza is the QB1 in this NFL draft, I think Trinidad could be QB2. There's no other quarterback that excites me outside of Mendoza more than Trinidad Chambliss. I think Chambliss, within the right situation, let him develop. I think he could be great.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we have a comment here for you, Nick. Thais Payan said, Nick, send a shout-out in Portuguese to your Brazilian fans.
Ooh.
Fala, abraço para meus fãs do Brasil.
I don't know. I don't know a compliment off the top of my head in Portuguese, to be honest with you. But while I've researched that, I got completely knocked off.
Sorry. We just. But Thais, I'm gonna teach Nick to do that in the next episode. But back to what we're saying about Ole Miss. I feel like as I was saying, it's gonna be a hard transition.
It's going to be a very, very hard transition indeed. But what I was saying was, I think Trinidad, it'll be interesting where he goes in the NFL draft. I think he certainly has a future ahead. So, yes, Indiana, Miami, in Hard Rock Stadium. Just kind of what are your first thoughts on this matchup?
Yeah, because next week we're going to discuss more about the actual game. I feel like I want to kind of save analysis of the matchup for next week, since we have limited time today. And Thais apologized to you, Nick, to put on a hard. But I'm going to teach him that, Nick. I'm going to teach Nick. But next episode, I think we want to dive in, compare, position in terms of quarterback, offensive side, defensive side, both coaches. I feel like I want to save for next week because it's going to be on the 19th, right, Nick?
Yep. So we got like a whole week to do it. So we'll definitely do this on next week's podcast. But all we'll say is I'm excited for this one. I think it's going to be a really, really fascinating game. So Indiana, Miami, we'll talk about that game more next week. The transfer portal, though, we should get into that because, man, this transfer portal situation is an absolute insanity the way this has gone. And I think there's no situation more that demonstrates just how much we've jumped the shark as a sport than the Demon Williams Jr. situation at Washington. So he's the quarterback at Washington this year. He had signed a deal to return to Washington last week. However, he announces, I believe it was Tuesday night, that he's transferring. He's entering the portal with a do not contact tag. Apparently, the team that he was talking to was LSU. And he announces this while the majority of his teammates and coaches are at a memorial service for a Washington soccer player. Her name is Mia Hamm. So first and foremost, just want to send our prayers to her, the Washington soccer player. But so all these players are at this soccer player's memorial service, and then they learn their quarterback, who didn't even talk to them about this, just leaves. And I would say it's Mia Hammett, by the way. I just want to correct that real quick. But so imagine they're at this very sad service. They're mourning one of their friends, and their quarterback leaves. And they're like, "What? We thought he signed a deal with us." And so Williams goes to Washington, tells him, "Hey, I want to leave." And Washington tells him, "No, you're not leaving. You signed a contract. You can't leave." And ultimately, Williams stays. Now, for one, Gus, I don't know if the locker room takes him back. I mean, if the guy that was supposed to be our leader pulled that crap, I don't want him back in our locker room. I don't care how good he is. And Demon Williams, I think he has a lot of potential as a quarterback. I wasn't particularly impressed with him, though, this year, to be completely honest with you. But I think the other part of this, too, is we have a massive issue with schools tampering with players while they're still on other teams. And we all know this is Lane Kiffin. And this is not just a Lane Kiffin thing. And I could bring this up to trash Lane Kiffin. But we have a lot of players, they're on their teams, and even before the portal opens or even after they've signed a contract, these recruiters are just flooding their inboxes and effectively bribing them to leave. And I think this is this situation is out of control because in the NFL, you can't do this, right? You have to wait until a player is a free agent before you can talk to them, or you have to wait till the season's over and request to interview a coach. But there's no rules in college football, and it is creating an eternal bidding war. It's creating a situation where contracts don't really matter, and you can't score like this.
Or the opposite. Maybe the Huskies found something that was going to keep some kind of order, because what I think came out of the situation is that contracts are contracts, that you got to enforce them, and the Huskies did it, and I think the other programs are going to follow through. They're going to all the lawyers or ADs from those programs are going to see how this contract was drafted and follow through, because that is a way to protect the program from players leaving and transferring out of the blue. Of course, probably there's going to be more for the valuable ones, like a quarterback or a wide receiver, but are going to be all those 50-plus players in the roster. But yeah, but the problem is that NCAA literally said after all those lawsuits and everything, we gave up. We not gonna be organized, or we're still gonna use the term that I think is ridiculous and are like student athletes. Oh, they're just student athletes. They're just no pros. Give me a break.
Yeah,
give
exactly.
me a break.
It's professional sports at this point.
It's a professional sport.
Yeah, and we should stop pretending like it's not professional sports. And this is why you have to have rules. I'm under a contract, and I can't just do whatever I want, right? Contracts exist for a reason, because otherwise it's like running a country without any laws. Yeah, you could have a country without no laws, but it isn't gonna work, because it's gonna fall apart.
Or even the checks and balances, from all those branches. I know we're gonna go
Well, I
even
mean,
deeper in.
I'm not even going to touch that.
Yeah. In theory, I'll say. But back to sports and college football. Yeah, I think those, at least the commissioner of the Big Ten, SEC, ACC, and the Big 12 has to go in a room with the NCAA president or something and be like, "Hey guys, we need some set of rules of transfer. Transfer window has to be in the summer. Like I think the fitting way is, let's say, uh, June, because I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in June there's no practice, right? If I'm
There's
correct.
no practice between spring practice and in the fall. The problem is, though, you want the new players on campus for your spring practice. So you want those players there for the spring practices. And I think what's going to have to happen eventually is you're going to have to divorce the idea that the football calendar can follow the academic calendar. And that might be a radical thing to say. But let's stop pretending here that academics is the main reason why these players are going to these schools. They're not. And I wish that weren't the case, because academics are obviously super important. But this is a business now. And I think what will ultimately happen here is these teams themselves are going to be divorced from the universities. Like the Tennessee Vols will be the Tennessee Vols. But basically, I think the way it's going to look like is they're going to have an arrangement where they get to utilize the University of Tennessee branding, and they get to play on Neyland Stadium on campus, and they're a quote-unquote college football team. But I think the University of Tennessee will not run that particular entity that is the Tennessee football program.
Yeah, what you're saying is kind of, since the majority of those schools are public institutions, you're literally saying, from my understanding, kind of like privatizing
Yeah,
the
I
football
think
department. And informally, this is what's happening, because from what I've seen from a lot of videos on Instagram, even there's Saudi money and private equity money on
Utah
those.
took it. Yes, Utah has taken private equity, and I mean, at this point, I'm starting with some of the things I'm seeing in the transfer portal this year involving Tennessee. I mean, we're getting outbid by like Virginia Tech for players. I'm like, I don't really want to do the private equity thing, but like, is there a rich oil donor out there that loves the Vols and would like to contribute to our NIL fund? Pretty please,
But at this point, Nick, I think is the idea that you brought up will be perfect. Privatizing the football program, like have owners, because you college football, people tend to be like, oh, it's the NFL junior, it's the NFL minor league. No, it's not, because the NFL has a whole set of rules, has owners, commissioner, the definite a time established that you can contact players, free agency, trades, all that kind of stuff that you don't have in college football.
Yeah, and it's gonna be different. And I just wonder, as this continues to evolve, will people remain committed to the sport? Like I saw a ton of messages from, especially looking at like the Washington situation. I saw people being like, I'm not renewing my season tickets after 40 years. I am not going to follow this anymore. I don't care to know who the players are. Like, I'll still root for the Washington Huskies, but I don't care who the players are. I'll be honest, and that's how I kind of feel at this point, right? Because it's just like, yeah, I'm going to root for the Vols. I care about the Power T. I care about the Orange. But do I really care about the players anymore? No, because like a lot of these guys are going to be here 1 year and gone the next. And I'm like, okay, just give me the best possible team now so we can go and win. But it ain't like what it used to be, where you watch a player get on campus and you like saw them grow over 4 years. Like, I mean, that's over. And I mean, it's almost like college basketball, right? The one and done situation. Like a guy like Nate Ament, like on the basketball team this year. Like, I expect him to be gone after this year, even if I think he's kind of sucked. And I want to get into that in a few minutes. But I expect him to leave after 1 year. Like, I'm not going to get that emotionally invested in Nate Ament. Like, I want him to win as many games as possible this year. But like, when he's gone, he's gone. Like, unless you're just really special, like a Dalton Connect. And like obviously, I view him as like an amazing player, one of the best Tennessee players ever. But it's just it's a crazy situation that has developed.
Yes, definitely. It's a kind of situation that it's a wild west, and it's gonna take time
Yeah.
for a system that will be balanced.
Yeah, well, definitely the one thing that needs to happen at least is the portal is to be after the national championship game. Like it was like Oregon. One thing that I think made a bit of a difference last night was the fact they had their backup running backs all transfer out, like because they were trying to be stars at other places. Like that's just stupid. Or you have these ideas of players committing and like, oh no, like DJ Lagway, for example, he says he's committed to the Baylor, but then like, oh, he's actually visiting Ole Miss, so he's not really committed. Or you have like the Kenny Mitchie person, the backup quarterback from Notre Dame, he commits to Nebraska, then Kentucky comes in and offers, so now he's going to Kentucky, and then you got Sam Levitt, and it's just all over the place. It's insane. And speaking of Sam Levitt, I'm not. Tennessee's transfer portal has been very frustrating to me. And as I mentioned, at Tennessee, Florida has just tipped off in basketball. But on the football side of things, I don't know who our quarterback's going to be because it seems more and more likely to me that Joey Aguilar is not going to get a 7th year because they're denying if Trinidad Chambliss, and then you also had Chandler Morris, the quarterback from Virginia this year, get denied their 7th year of eligibilities. I seriously doubt Joey Aguilar will get his, which means Tennessee will have to go in a different direction quarterback wise. Now, the only quarterback we have left on our roster, and I think that was Nate, right? Let's go, Nate. It falls up 3-0 in the swamp. But so the only quarterback we really have on the roster, assuming Joey leaves, is Sam Levitt. So we got to get at least someone else in the portal, right? I mean, you have Fajon Brandon coming in. He's a 5-star quarterback, top quarterback in this cycle, but true freshman, right? I doubt that Josh Heupel really wants to start him. So this week we had Sam Levitt visit Tennessee. Now, he came to Knoxville from Arizona State, right? Like he was been the quarterback at Arizona State the last 2 years, visited LSU this week. Apparently he's visiting Miami this weekend. I don't know if we're going to get him. I'm not, frankly, the highest fan of Sam Levitt. I think he was highly propped up by Cam Scatteraboo and Jordan Tyson. And I think that we could totally do better. Oh, what a play by Nate. All right. Well, I say Nate Edmonds sucks, and he comes out and scores 5 points immediately. There you go. But Sam Levitt, if we had to go to him, you know, he probably comes in with a higher floor than Joey, but probably a higher ceiling. But at the same time, I'm just not completely sure if Sam Levitt would be that game-changing quarterback that I think people would hope he is. I mean, he is ranked as the top quarterback in the transfer portal. However, if he goes somewhere else, which it seems like it's likely to me, apparently we have also this weekend are bringing in Bo Pribula. He was a quarterback this year at Missouri. And I'm going to be honest, I don't think Pribula is very good. He had 9 interceptions this year to 11 touchdowns. Like, he's a really good runner, not a great thrower. And I don't know if that really meshes well with the Tennessee offense, with the way Josh Heupel runs. But honestly, if Joey Aguilar does not get another year, you might have to bring in Bo Pribula. And honestly, I think this has been partially bad luck on the side of Heupel, just side of the way this transfer portal has unfolded. But also, it's kind of mismanagement. I think that our quarterback situation has kind of fallen apart. And granted, you're still kind of reeling from the Nico thing. And because this should be year free of Nico this year. But I'm going to be honest. If Joe Pribula is our quarterback next year, I'm not going to have very high hopes for our offense. I'm just going to be honest with you. I don't think he's a very good quarterback. And I feel like from a transfer portal perspective, it has been a bit disappointing. I feel like, we have 7 commitments. We've gotten a new kicker, the backup from Louisville, Cooper Ravinier, who I understand is pretty good. We've gotten some commits from Penn State. I really hope we get Chaz Coleman, the defensive end. We've got a linebacker and a safety from Penn State. Got a couple of other defensive commits. So Jim Knowles is definitely doing pretty well on that side of the ball. But I don't know. Overall, when you look at the schedule that we are going to have next year, I don't know if we're truly going to be that much better. I'm going to be honest with you, man. Like if Tennessee is about at the same level next year they are this year, we may not get to 6 wins. And that might be a bold statement to make, but I don't know if we're in the best position.
Yeah, it seems not that Tennessee football program could be going a little bit of a rebuild. We'll see.
But we have to ask this though. We saw what Indiana is doing. We see what Indiana's doing right now, right? And we have to ask ourselves: should we be going for a rebuild? Like we just made the playoffs last year, and it feels like that we should be close to being up there and competitive. And it feels like right now, whatever momentum we've had is kind of has fallen off a bit. And I still think, Tennessee has a lot of talent and they will have a lot of talent. And I think one thing we have to remember this year is we had one of the younger rosters in the entire country. So that will grow up a ton. And obviously I think the receiving core is going to be great. I think running back will be decent. I'm very concerned about the quarterback. And I'm concerned that we've lost out some of these battles to like Virginia Tech. And I guess, we're trying to be patient and conservative of how we use the NIL because you don't want to get burned like we did with Nico or with Boo Carter and make sure we're spending money on really, really good guys. But at the same time, we've let people like Jacoby Thomas go. And Jacoby Thomas is going to be playing in the national championship next week for Miami. When you get ran off the field by Vanderbilt at home, you got to really start asking yourself some of these tough questions in terms of, are we handling this the way we can handle this? And it just, I don't mean to be so Debbie Downer on the Tennessee football program right now, but the season obviously did not end in the best manner at all. So I will wait to reserve complete judgment until we see the full portal, until we know what our quarterback is. But admittedly, I am a bit concerned based off what I think is going to happen. I mean, I think the best case scenario is Joey gets that 7th year. Because at this point, I would rather keep Joey unless you can get Sam Levitt. And I'm not completely that high on Sam Levitt, to be honest with you. But I do think Sam Levitt probably has a higher ceiling than Joey. Because I think with Joey, I think your team's probably like 8 wins at most with Joey, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's something Josh Heupel is going to have to address really soon. That's probably what he's talking with his OC and his staff.
Yeah. And also, too, I think what's interesting as well is just kind of the mood across the fan base right now is not very good. I think Tennessee fans, we had a very good stretch there for a while where like baseball won a national title, basketball went to back-and-back Elite Eights, football was doing really well. But I feel like, recently we've suffered some losses. Tony V leaving, basketball's had a little bit of a shaky start, and of course, the way the football season ended with the losses to Vandy and Illinois, there's a lot of tension in the fan base. And that really has kind of exploded over the last week. You've had a lot of people tweeting at the 80 Danny White, being like, hey, Danny, why are you so focused on the entertainment district at Neyland Stadium versus like making sure our teams are good? And Danny's like, wow, I didn't realize that I only could focus on one thing at a time. And it's just the vibes aren't good right now, Gus, in Tennessee. That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a lot of tension. You have to wonder if it's partially the Indiana effect. As Tennessee fans be like, hey, if Indiana could go from losing this program ever to a national championship, why isn't Tennessee? Because in theory, they think Tennessee should have the same amount of money, same amount of resources to do something like that, and we're just not. But two, I do think there is a bit of fatigue with the transfer portal, with NIL. And that's not just a Tennessee problem. That's an everywhere problem. And, of course, free in Tennessee as well. I think a lot of people feel like they're getting priced out of going to games. But is that just the cost of admission with the modern transfer portal, with the modern NIL? And I think, that's leading to a lot of frustration back at Danny White, which I do think is still unfair. Like, Danny White has done an excellent job as our AD. But it's just, I don't know. Tennessee fans are not overall very happy right now for a myriad of reasons. And obviously, the ultimate fix to all this is winning. So in 2026, if we can do some winning, Tennessee basketball up at Florida right now, just if we can do some winning, it solves all problems.
Yeah, it's like I talk to my Rio Branco front office fellows, Rio Branco president, vice presidents, director, GM, that we here at Rio Branco, we have criticism. For example, this week we posted on our Instagram that the stadium was approved for this season. We needed to renew some things from the police and fire. Now, what is the name when you have to renew those things?
Renew the contracts, like
not contract. The say, hey, the police approved the stadium. What is the name of the document?
You had to get it like inspected by the fire.
Yeah. All the inspections and everything was approved, and in the Police Federation website was all approved. And we posted, and the fans were like, "Oh, but how about the lights? Haven't been fixed in so many years. How about this? How about that?" Fans only will be happy in the day that the team wins the championship, and even then there'll be people like, "Oh, but they could have win by more."
Well, that was literally Vols fans when we beat Florida. People were upset we didn't beat them by 50 instead of just 20.
Yeah,
like just enjoy the fact we won at the Swamp,
Because every fans from here I learned, and probably you too, from covering sports, living in sports, is that fans are short for fanatics, and fans are always demanding from that. And there's a saying here in Brazil that probably applies to America: if sports fans were as invested in their country as they are in their teams, the world probably will be a better place.
I would agree with that 100%.
Because if, for example, people in Tennessee would demand better services from their government as they demand from Danny White to have a good football or a good basketball program, probably things would be better. And here in Brazil, like the same thing, like everywhere, But I feel you can't win argument with fans. You just have to know what you're doing and know you're in a good path.
Yeah, Danny White on a daily basis is probably more criticized than Governor Lee at this point. So, that's probably true. But in any case, we'll see what happens. Transfer portal still remains open. We'll see who our quarterback is. And hopefully we have some answers by our next podcast. Holy cow, man. Dude, how is that not a foul? Transferring to basketball. I think a Condon for Florida, totally ripped down Amari Evans. Like, how? I don't know how that's not a foul call, but hey, we get the ball in. Okay, they made up the call. Good. So speaking of that, Tennessee is at Florida right now. It's 9-7, 14:25 left in the first half, and the Vols have started off 1-1. NSC play lost at Arkansas last week, came back and beat Texas on Tuesday night. Jacoby Gillespie had 34 in that win against Texas. However, the thing that was a bit disappointing was Nate Ament. Nate Ament only took 2 shots in that game. We're paying $4 million for him. Now, Nate Ament, to be fair to him, has started off this game very well. I think he's already scored 5 in this game, if I'm not mistaken. Came out and scored the first 5 points of the game. And to me, when it comes to this Tennessee team right now, we'd be about a 5 seed in the tournament right now, 4 to 5 seed roughly. So if they do what they're supposed to do, they're pretty safely in the tournament. Don't have to worry about being a bubble team. Probably not a top end seed. But I think this is still one of those teams, as I've been saying for a while, where this team is only going to go as far as their stars are going to take you. And Nate Ament was named to the top 25 Win and Watch award watch list. And I'll be honest, I don't understand that because Nate Ament has frankly not played good to me in these big games. Like he's not been impressive. He's not been physical. And I think, as an 18-year-old, he is adjusting to more physical play. He has got to be able to do that. And if he's able to do that, then Tennessee's ceiling would absolutely increase. Right now, the way the team is playing, they look like a first-round weekend exit team to me. Now, obviously, this would be a nice one to get at the defending national champion, Florida. Now, to be fair, Florida is not ranked right now. But, they're still the defending national champions, right? Like, you got to give them that type of respect. So, obviously, we're in, like, actual conference play, and we're starting to figure out who some of these teams are. And Tennessee, I think, is a team where I truly, really still don't know where they're going to end up ultimately. And I love the fact that on the sideline, I can make out Mike Keefe perfectly on the baseline there. It's wild seeing him call basketball for the Volunteers, instead of calling just, the Titans. Come on, get a rebound. But in any case, Vols battling the Gators. What do you think about, I don't know if you've seen any of the basketball team, Gus, but,
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, I'm not following them closely. But, yeah, it's a great test on the road against the defending national champion. Of course, probably they're not in the same level as they were last season. Not being ranked says that. But in basketball, it's not like in football where it varies a lot from year to year.
Oh, but yeah. Right now, one of the top 5 teams in the country, according to KenPom, is Vanderbilt. They're 15-0, undefeated. They beat Alabama the other night. Vandy legitimately might be the best team in the SEC, and that's unbelievable to say. That's kind of scary to say. But I think, to me right now, my early pick for national champion is Michigan. They're undefeated. They have been very, very impressive. They have multiple blowout wins. Arizona, Iowa State, too, are right up there as well. The SEC as a whole is just not as good this year as it was last year. But, still early. It's only January, so we'll see what happens here. Great play by Nate Amon. Get to the line. Now, the thing about Nate Amon, though, last week, he was 5 of 11 from the free throw line against Arkansas. That's one thing he has to continue to get better at, is shooting at the free throw line. He's going to the line there for 2. Shout out to the Lady Vols as well. They're undefeated so far in SEC play. And the Base Vols are preseason ranked number 3, only behind LSU and Georgia Tech. Gosh, so the baseball writers are not expecting that much of a drop-off without Tony Vitello, as the Josh Elander era is set to begin here in just a little bit over a month, since college baseball starts in February.
Yeah, at least the team is highly ranked, but we'll see what the transition is going to be post Tony Vitello era. Absolutely.
And Nate Amon made his first one, and he makes his second one. So good stuff for Nate Amon. He's up to 7 points. This is starting to look like the 5-star I was expecting to see. So we'll see how that game progresses throughout the afternoon here. But let's get into some NFL, Gus. It is Week 18. Actually, it is Super Wildcard weekend, as the regular season has concluded, Gus. So let's briefly just look back at Week 18, and to me, the best game of the last week by far was Steelers-Ravens. What a wild finish to that game. Aaron Rodgers hits Calvin Austin for the go-ahead touchdown with 55 seconds to go, but Chris Boswell misses the extra point. Gives Lamar Jackson a chance to go down the field, set up his kicker, Tyler Loop, for the game-winning field goal, but he misses as well. Steelers win the AFC North. John Harbaugh gets fired. And it feels like that kick, if the Ravens had made the kick, Mike Tomlin would have been fired. So it's crazy how one kick was just that important for both of those coaches. And, Gus, do you think it was fair for the Ravens to fire John Harbaugh after that?
I think it was a matter of, is that it perfectly? That whoever the outcome of the kick was going to define either of those coaches, because they're both legendary. They're both great coaches. Shout out to my great friend, Mauricio Luz, Rio Branco fan, great reporter, saying in the best press conference room in Brazil. Shout out Gus. Yes, talk about Rio Branco. We'll talk about later. But back to Ravens and Steelers. Both coaches set their, their legacy. Both are going to be remembered in Pittsburgh and Baltimore. But that missed field goal set whoever's going to leave the organization, because we all knew that if Mike Tomlin would have been kept out of the playoff with Aaron Rodgers, probably he was also not going to stay for another year. But if now he's in the playoffs, probably he's going to stay at least another year. But I think John Harbaugh had a little bit of fatigue, and also maybe the team wanted to find another coach that was going to, elevate Lamar Jackson.
Yes. Yeah, and the thing about Lamar Jackson is I think the Ravens are starting to get worried they're going to completely waste him. And I think that's part of the reason why they made this move when they did. And I'll be curious to see who they get. And I think John Harbaugh will be hired by someone else. I want the Titans to get him personally. I think he can instantly elevate the Titans out of the doldrums. I don't know if he'll ever win a Super Bowl in Tennessee, but just get us competitive, man. Like, I'm tired of watching us win 2 free games a year. This is my take. Now,
yeah, but he has a big market for him. Not only the Titans, he also has the Giants. He also has other teams that he could possibly go.
Yes, and there was so many coaches in addition to follow that. A quarter of all the teams, Gus, 8 teams, have openings for head coach. So Pete Carroll, we
go ahead.
Yeah, Pete Carroll. We had Mike McDaniel, Jonathan Gannon of the Cardinals. You had Kevin Stefanski, the Browns coach, get fired, and you had So those, I think, all the new ones, and Raheem Morris of the Falcons also got fired as well. So, which one of these do you think is like the most surprising? Which one of these are like the most deserved in your opinion?
The most surprising, Pete Carroll. I thought he was going to have another year, but probably him choosing Geno Smith and not working, and also Raiders want to find a coach that will be more suitable for Fernando Mendoza. But the one that was the least surprising of all, Mike McDaniels. We all saw that coming.
Oh yeah, I thought he was going to get fired during the season. So I'm kind of surprised he made it to the end of the year. Stefanski, I don't blame everything on Cleveland on him. I just think the GM and the Haslams are just completely incompetent. Like, I think he should get another shot at some point. Gannon and the Cardinals, I don't blame Gannon like entirely for that situation. I just think that's just a poor front office. Raheem Morris, I think the Falcons should have kept Raheem Morris personally. I thought the Falcons were still playing hard. I thought they were playing well. And really, I think it was their GM's fault that the season wasn't that good, because the GM was one who decided to sign Kirk Cousins to a $100 million contract and then draft Michael Penix Jr. in the same offseason, and they both suck. Like, that's not the head coach's fault. That's the GM's fault.
Yeah, totally, 100%. But it's kind of like what happened to the Titans. The GM make mistakes and the coach pays off.
Right, and of course, our problem is we had an owner that wanted to fire the GM one year, keep the coach, then keep the coach, fire the GM, which is what we're doing this year. So maybe this year, don't fire anyone. Just let some consistency. Also, at the very least, I would love Mike McDaniel as OC. I think Mike McDaniel is a great offensive mind. Or Raheem Morris is DC. So I do think there is, like, I think Mike McDaniel and Raheem Morris have proven they can coach at a very high level in the league. I think for Mike McDaniel, his big downfall was Tua getting hurt and his offense kind of falling off a cliff because of that. And I think that was more of a Tua problem than a McDaniel problem. And I think McDaniel, like, if you give McDaniel Cam Ward, like, I think McDaniel could cook again. So we'll see what happens, but I wouldn't mind taking Mike McDaniel in Tennessee. One team that I'm surprised didn't join this circus was the Tampa Bay Bucks. I thought with the way that this season went for Tampa and such an easy division to win, I thought Todd Bowles, frankly, should have been fired for that. Like, that was poor this year.
Everyone else on his coaching staff was basically fired or roasted.
Yeah, so they're going the whole replace the staff. It's kind of like what Mike Gundy and Oklahoma State did this past offseason. We saw how that worked. So I think the Bucs should certainly be fired down the road. And it's crazy that they beat the Panthers and still lost the division. Just
like the Buccaneers part ways with not 1, not 2, not 3, not 4, with 5 assistant coaches, including the offensive coordinator and the special teams coordinator.
Yeah, and you have to wonder how much of last year's success for the Tampa was Liam Cohen. We see what Liam Cohen's doing in Jacksonville, what he did with Trevor Lawrence this year. It looks like Liam was the brains behind their success last year. So it's kind of interesting how some coordinators are really able to do the job. I mean, it's like Ben Johnson. Detroit falls off a cliff this year without Ben Johnson, and he fixes Chicago. So, I think, out of all the coordinators out there, too, because I think there'll be coordinators out there to talk to, I want the Seahawks defensive coordinator. I'm not sure what his name is, but I think he will make for a very good head coach. Kind of like how we saw with how the Ravens defense sucks now without
Aden Durde.
Yeah, I want the Titans to interview him because that defense is very good for Seattle.
But he got an interview request from the Cleveland Browns.
I'd stay away from Cleveland. Cleveland is where coaching careers go to die. So I'd rather stay a coordinator with a good team instead of being the head coach of the Cleveland Browns or like the New York Jets.
Yeah. The Browns literally posted yesterday that they're doing an interview with him.
Yeah. But yeah, the Bucks, not even just a complete failure of a season. They should have won that division easily, and they did not.
Yeah, but I saw firsthand live at their stadium how their team had a lot of issues because they needed a last-second field goal to beat a very mediocre New York Jets team. So they kind of had an easy. Like the Bucks and the Colts benefited from the first half of their schedule and then fell apart in the second half. Both had the same kind of trajectory.
Yeah, and of course the Colts, there's a lot of controversy there because they're keeping Shane Steichen and their GM, Chris Ballard. So, and I know hearing from Jason and all of his friends, they are not happy about that decision. So, because they thought they should have been removed from their positions. But the Colts are staying the course.
But it was funny the way that the Panthers got their division title because they won on Saturday, but they needed the Falcons to win, right?
Yeah, well, they lost Saturday, but then the Falcons bailed them out, so they get to host a playoff game today. So, sometimes it's better to be lucky than to be good. One last time before we get into wild card predictions, the Seahawks got that one seed and a dominant win on the road in San Francisco. I was very impressed. I did not expect the Seahawks to play this well. I mean, they ran the ball very well. It kind of, it took a lot of pressure off of Sam Darnold. And that's my main concern with Seattle in these playoffs is Sam Darnold, can he perform in the clutch? That's my main concern. But in this game, he performed very well. So Seattle gets to take the week off, and also Denver gets to take the week off as well. They are both the 1 seeds. All right, guys. I know we're running short on time, so let's start getting into some picks here. The first game today we have this evening at 4:30. It is the Los Angeles Rams at the Carolina Panthers. What do you think about that game?
I mean, the Panthers have a home factor, which probably they haven't hosted a playoff game in God knows how many years. Probably it was more like 10 or 9, but I think the Rams have the better team. I'm gonna go with the Los Angeles Rams, but I'll bet the under.
Yeah, the Panthers actually did beat the Rams in the regular season. The Rams were the only team with a winner record Carolina beat in the regular season, but I don't think they're beating them twice. So give me the Rams. Tonight, the rivalry, the Green Bay Packers going to Chicago. I think that's going to be an amazing atmosphere tonight.
That's massive. I think for the city of Chicago, for the state of Illinois, probably is the biggest game in this decade. In this decade is the biggest game Chicago Bears football have ever seen. This decade, I think. And the pressure for Caleb Williams and Ben Johnson is enormous because they get to host their arch rivals, I mean, Mel LaFleur and Jordan Love have been in this situation before. They, for example, a couple of seasons ago went to Dallas and eliminated the Cowboys. So they've been. But I think this Bears team, I think they're stronger and better. I'm going to go with the Bears.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Bears too. There's just too many injuries for the Packers. I think if the Packers were at full strength, I would probably take Green Bay to win this game, but I think Chicago should get it done. All right, tomorrow. I think the game I'm looking most forward to this week, you have the Buffalo Bills, the Jacksonville Jaguars.
Great quarterback battle. Of course, the home factor is going to play out because the game is not going to be in the snow of Buffalo. It's going to be in the sunny 65 weather in Jacksonville, Florida. That must play a factor. And I'm going to go with Jacksonville.
It's so hard because, I think the best player on the field is Josh Allen. I really think the best player on the field is Josh Allen. And it probably saw me reacting to Jacoby Gillespie hitting a deep three. Vols take the lead 19-17, 8 minutes left in the first half. But at the end of the day, I'd say Jacksonville's just a much better team. I don't think the Bills supporting cast is good enough. And plus, Jacksonville's just playing so well right now. And this game's at home. I like Jacksonville to win this football game. Plus, I think Liam Cohen's a much better coach than Sean McDermott. Next game, we have the 49ers going across country to the Philadelphia Eagles. This one will also be fascinating as the Eagles begin their title defense.
Yeah, and they get to host too. And the same argument you make for the Packers, I'll make for the 49ers. They're too depleted. I'm going to go with Eagles.
I'm going to be honest. So the 49ers have been playing very, very good football up until last week. And to me, the Eagles are just kind of like, what version of the Eagles are you going to get? Like, are you going to get the one that has no offense, or are you going to get the one that has enough? And then plus, with this game being in Philadelphia, the fans have been kind of restless this year. If the 49ers get up early, they're going to turn against them. I like the 49ers to win this game.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Do you think if that happens, the future for the coach is going to be uncertain?
Not necessarily. He just won the Super Bowl last year. I think it'd be ridiculous.
Yeah, but 10-5. I know, but if may I remind you, Doug Peterson as well was. Of course, he was fired after a couple of seasons after they win the Super Bowl, but yeah. But I'm gonna go with the Eagles.
All right, the Sunday night game. We've got the Los Angeles Chargers going cross country to the New England Patriots. Drake May makes his playoff debut. What do you have here?
Chargers. I'm gonna go with the Los Angeles Chargers.
Man, this is a tough one because I usually don't trust the Chargers in the postseason, but I'm going to also be honest. I think these Patriots are kind of a fraud. They only beat one team with a winning record all year, and that's the Bills. I'm going to I go with the Chargers. I'm going with the Chargers as well on the road here. But it feels dangerous that we're both going with the road team here. Chargers. And then the Monday night game, you've got the Houston Texans going on the road to the Pittsburgh Steelers.
The amount of pressure for the Steelers, for Mike Tomlin, winning a playoff game, something that haven't happened in, this decade, the Pittsburgh Steelers have not won a playoff game.
Yeah, I think honestly, too, the pressure, just as much on as Steelers, there's a lot of pressure on C.J. Stroud in this Texans offense because the Texans defense, is the best in the league by far. But the question for Houston is, do they have enough offense? And I think in this game, Houston's going to have enough offense. But I don't know if they're going to have enough offense past this game because I don't think Pittsburgh's offense is going to do very much against Houston. So I'm going to go with the Texans. But don't be surprised if this is low scoring and really close at the end, just because I think Pittsburgh's defense will give themselves a chance.
So the line for the total amount of points is 38.5. Go under or over?
I'd go under. I think it's going to be Texans 17-7. I think it's going to be a very low scoring game.
I agree. But for my take, I think finally, especially with Aaron Rodgers, the Steelers win a playoff game this decade. Give me the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Oh wow, and that would be a massive disappointment for the Texans with the defense that they have. If they waste this defense and can't win a playoff game, that's not a good look. And real quick, we're not going to go through the full bracket for time. Just what is your Super Bowl pick? Your Super Bowl matchup pick?
I mean, we can do real quick the bracket if you want. I think
okay, so all right, let me just think real quick. So you picked the Rams, you picked the Eagles, and you picked the.
I'll pick Rams, Eagles, Bears from the NFC.
So you would have Rams at Seahawks, and then Eagles at Bears. So first, Rams, Seahawks.
My Seahawks.
Eagles at Bears.
Bears.
So you'd have Bears at Seahawks.
I'll go Bears to the Super Bowl.
Okay. So then on the AFC side, you picked the Bills, right?
I'll pick Jaguars, Steelers, and Chargers.
Okay. So we have the Chargers at Broncos, and then the Steelers at Jaguars. So Chargers, Broncos.
Chargers.
And then Steelers, Jaguars.
Jaguars.
So Chargers, Jaguars, AFC Championship. Who do you got? How wild of an AFC title game too will that be? Chargers at Jaguars.
Yeah. Chargers.
7th seed all the way to Super Bowl. So we got Chargers versus the Bears Super Bowl. Who do you have?
And Jim Harbaugh finally wins his Super Bowl. Give me the Chargers.
Yeah, from national championship to Super Bowl. So you're taking the number 7 seed all the way. Okay, so for me, I picked the Rams, the Bears, and the 49ers. So I'd have the 49ers at the Seahawks. I would have the Rams at the Bears. So I would take the Bears over the Rams. And I would take the 49ers to upset the Seahawks in Seattle. So then I've got 49ers at Bears. I'm taking the 49ers again. I'm taking the 49ers all the way to the Super Bowl.
So they're going to play at home. So they're going to have another home team in the playoff in the Super Bowl.
But they have to win everything on the road to get there. Then meanwhile, on the other side, I picked the Jags, I picked the Chargers, and I picked the Texans. So I have the Chargers at the Broncos, and I'll be honest, I'm taking the Broncos at home against the Chargers. And then I've got Texans at Jags, so I took the Jags over the Texans. So we have the Jags at the Broncos. I'm taking the Jaguars to win on the road in Denver. So I've got the Jaguars and the 49ers, and I'm going to take the 49ers to win the whole thing.
Oh, so finally the 49ers, they win at home, and also finally their coach got their Super Bowl.
Yeah, so I'm going to actually just write that down so we don't forget this. So Super Bowl pick. So Mia is 49ers over Jaguars. And then you have the Chargers over the
Bears.
All right. We'll see who is more correct or if neither one of us are close. Guess how much more time do you have?
We'll have time. I want to go with the MLB situation first because that's very interesting.
Right. I guess let's just go like bullet point NBA real quick. What do you think about the Trae Young trade to the Wizards?
He's probably didn't go his full potential in Atlanta. He's going to try to find somewhere else to, probably elevate his play.
Yeah, and it's interesting because the Wizards are not usually a team that you hear players demand for, but the Wizards do have some good young players, and maybe they can figure out something and be good for the first time, literally ever. Also, John Morant likely be traded away for the Memphis Grizzlies. I'm hearing maybe Milwaukee there. So or maybe the New Orleans Pelicans could be another option for John Morant there. I don't know if either one of those moves make either of those teams a championship contender, but Morant with Giannis would be very interesting. But let's get into that MLB situation because, man, we have like a third of all the MLB teams who right now don't have a designated network, including the Braves, because FanDuel Sports is going bankrupt. I mean, Gus, but the MLB has got to find a solution to this problem. Right now, it is too hard to watch your average Major League Baseball game. It is insane. It's too convoluted. They got to simplify this and make it cheaper and easier for
What
fans.
the MLB needs to get rid of old rules like the blackouts, which are stupid, and just go. I'll create like a streaming, like a Netflix for MLB. Like you sign up, you have all the games anywhere you can watch it. Like just get rid of outdated rules and just go on full 21st century mode.
Yeah, exactly. They got to make it more digital, make it easier because the MLB has a good product. Like the sport itself has never been better, in my opinion. Like look at that World Series last year. It was incredible the way that World Series was, and it feels like they're not able to create the momentum that they should because it is impossible to watch your local team.
Very, very hard to do that. And Major League Baseball needs to address that real quick because the old model fell apart. You know, the old model worked while people had cable, sign up for the RSN channels, but now this model is not sustainable. People are cutting the cord, going to stream,
Yeah, and people will sit down and watch baseball. People want to go to baseball games. They want to, because baseball is it's a relaxing sport throughout the regular season. But people will get invested if you give them an avenue to be invested. So MLB, like you have something, you still are America's pastime. Make it our pastime once again. And the last thing I have on the American side of things, NASCAR is unveiling a new championship format on Monday. So I think we are moving away from the playoff model, which is absolutely a W. Playoffs do not belong in motorsports. You can't do it. Like you don't have one-on-one racing tournaments like you do in a ball and stick sport. I'll be curious to see what it is. I would love to just go back to a full season format, like literally every other racing league. Like every race from beginning to the end should matter in the championship. But I do think it's going to look at least better than what it was. So hopefully a decision that will make things better. Gus, what do you have in Brazil?
Real quick, the Sao Paulo State Championship starts this weekend, the first and second division. I'm going to go over with the teams in the first division, especially the main four. Santos plays today in about an hour. I'll be broadcasting for the local radio station here. Neymar is out. He's still recovering from a surgery he did last month. But Gabriel Barbosa, Gabigol, former Flamengo and Cruzeiro striker, will be available for today. I'll be interested to see how the fans are going to react to him and how Santos are going to play today. Palmeiras also play tonight against a city rival, Portuguesa. Technically on the road, but I bet it's going to be a 50-50 Portuguesa Palmeiras fans. But I bet it's going to be like a half or even like a quarter of the starting lineup for last season. A lot of players probably are still getting back after vacation. Tomorrow, Corinthians hosting Ponte Preta. Corinthians also has a lot of players out from recovering from last season. So there's going to be a lot of new faces and players from their from the academy, from the under 20, playing tomorrow at Corinthians Stadium, 4 p.m. against Ponte Preta, and Sao Paulo plays on the road as well against Mirassol. Sao Paulo with a lot of turmoil in their political side. The president has been called to be impeached because of corruption allegations surrounding him and his staff and his front office. So that's the start. So they're going to be the first week of São Paulo State Championship. All the other games, São Bernardo Capivariano in about 15 minutes. The opening game for the first division of the state championship of São Paulo State Championship. Guarani and Primavera at 4:30 Eastern Time, 6:30 Brazil time. Velo Clube and Botafogo of Ribeirão Preto as well. Noroeste and Red Bull Bragantino as play as well tomorrow. So the start of a new season, especially in the state of Sao Paulo, championship kicks off this weekend.
Brilliant. I definitely, it's good to see soccer back in full swing in Brazil.
Yeah, and Rio Branco kicks off their season in about 2 weeks, as I said, on the road against Rio Preto. Next week is going to be Tiger Day, kind of like, an orange and white game where fans can watch a practice, interact with players, so kind of, I created this event inspired by the orange and white game. So next Saturday, Rio Branco fans will be able to watch their team practice, get to know the players as well.
That's good. That's an amazing idea, and I'm glad that American exports like the spring game are being exported internationally. That is great. That is absolutely great to see. Last score before we wrap up here: Florida has taken the lead 29-26, but it's definitely a back and forth game in the swamp. That is all the time that we have today for episode 215 of Two Countries, Two Americas, All Sports, the only American and Brazilian sports podcast. For Gus Hamazelli, I'm Nick Hill. Thank you so much for watching, and have an excellent weekend.